Hello everybody and welcome back to the Kamidogu podcast. I am Christopher Beljanovsky, and joining me as always is the man, the myth, the legend, Toasty.
Toasty!
Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, unfortunately, as you can probably hear in my voice, I'm still feeling very much under the weather, but the show must go on. If you enjoy our podcast, please share it with your friends and be sure to hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you watch or listen to the podcast. The announcement of NetherRealm Studios' next project is hopefully just around the corner. So when that time comes, there will be plenty to discuss and you won't want to miss it. With that being said, Toasty, take it away.
Good day to everyone. Thanks for taking the time to be here today. Mortal Kombat has been successful in all kinds of formats, whether it's the video games, comic books, movies, TV shows. But one take of the franchise that was well spoken of across the net was Kevin Tancharoen's unique vision of Mortal Kombat. MK Legacy has always been a lot of fun, and it continues to be a blast every time I watch it. Whenever we get somebody who worked on this project, it's always a pleasure. One very talented individual who has achieved much in his career is the skillful Jacobus. Eric played the character Kurtis Stryker in Season 2 of Legacy. Whether Stryker is wielding the electric taser or swinging around with the riot stick, one thing for certain is that he is deadly with a gun. A very unique character in the series, we are more than happy to have Eric with us today. Eric has also worked heavily in the video game industry as of late, doing motion capture in IPs such as God of War, Last of Us, Call of Duty, Destiny, and so much more. Oh yeah, and this little indie game called Mortal Kombat 11. Video games aside, martial arts is certainly his forte. He has been involved with a number of different movie projects and so forth. With that done and out of the way, let's head over to today's interview. All right, and here we are, ladies and gentlemen. We are joined with Eric Jacobus. It's so good to have you here. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So to start off today, I'd like to ask, how did you first get into the world of stunt work and eventually motion capture? Did your YouTube series Tekken in Real Life help plant the seeds for anything at all?
I think the seed was planted back in 2000 and 2001. I was a big Hong Kong film fan, and I was actually a computer programmer at the time, a web designer. That was my first job. So I was making websites, and I made a website to review Hong Kong movies. And this was back in the early internet days. And I reviewed Hong Kong movies just from an action perspective. And I wasn't like a martial artist or anything at the time. I didn't really know anything about that. I like to say, I got my yellow belt in strip mall Kempo karate, like all good, like small town Americans, and then dropped out. But then I really just did it out of fascination. And then, I was raised on kind of like vaudeville and Arnold Schwarzenegger movies and B martial art films. But then when I found Hong Kong cinema, I got really obsessed about it, reviewed all these movies, did like 500 reviews, and decided, well, maybe I'll try this, because I thought like, well, how, because they use a lot of filmmaking techniques to just kind of make the best of performers. And I wasn't much of a martial artist, but I figured I could hide it. Anyway, long story short, we did our first film back in 2001. And then I did that for 15 years and just did indie martial art action films. And my skill was not the martial arts. My skill was that I could hit the concrete pretty hard. And that always kind of made people, that always got a rise out of people. But then I learned martial arts, on top of that. And like, again, I was doing that for like 13 years while holding a day job. And I would just, save up all my money and spend it on, feature film and go broke and keep working. And I was just doing day jobs like forklifting. I worked at a kids' science camp. I was computer programming at the beginning. Then I worked at a nonprofit. And then finally, took the dive, became full-time stuntman in 2013. My first year, I made a high four-figure salary. High four figures, guys. High four figures. Yeah. Seriously, it made like no money. But
Damn.
then, slowly but surely, kind of like worked my way into the system, and then ended up working and doing previs, which is kind of like blocking tapes for action, where we rehearse the action on camera, because I was a filmmaker, so I could actually shoot action really well. Did that for some films. Came back from China doing that in 2015. Felt really sick because, eating street food in China will clear you out for a week. And came home and said, I'm just going to work on my own abilities. And that's when I started doing Tekken in real life in my garage. And then that's what got me into mocap, because the Santa Monica studio team found me through YouTube.
That's incredible. Wow. So before you got involved with these various Mortal Kombat projects, were you actually a fan of the game at all?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, I skipped over a Mortal Kombat thing, too, in that process. Right as I was becoming a full-time stuntman, I did a job in a Mortal Kombat show. But when I was... One of my crazier things that I ever asked for was, I asked my mom if all the family for Christmas, instead of getting me like 10 different Christmas presents, could all just pool their resources and get me one Mortal Kombat arcade cabinet.
Oh, that's everyone's dream, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was like 13, and she said, you'll play that thing for a week, and you'll never touch it, which is probably true. It never happened, fortunately. But we had an arcade called the Gold Mine, and I remember seeing Mortal Kombat and kind of being blown away, and going like, wow, these are like real people kind of doing cool martial arts that are kind of like Big Trouble in Little China style, which is actually what they were inspired by at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I absolutely loved Mortal Kombat. Wasn't good at it, but I loved it.
Did you have any favorite characters or games from the series?
Yeah, Mortal Kombat 3, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. I remember when that hit the arcades.
Yep.
The combo system was what got me in that. And I could actually like hold my own okay in that one. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
You really enjoy Smoke as well. Is that accurate?
That was the one. How'd you know that?
Yeah.
He does his research.
That was my character. I didn't even know that was out there anywhere. Wow. Very well done. I'm not a smoke-looking kind of guy.
Eric, I'm pretty sure you've done a total of about 8 characters for the video game Mortal Kombat 11. If you can happen to remember, which characters did you provide the motion capture for, or at least a few in which you can recall?
All right. Well, I apologize to anyone if I step over your characters out there in the world, but I believe I did Kano, Johnny Cage, Shao Kahn. Shao Kahn was like my big one. I did a lot of his cinematics too.
Wow.
And then I did Erron, Jax, and then 3 more. I think Baraka. I forget the rest. I even did a Sonya Blade fatality. So.
Oh,
really?
Look at that!
But the thing is, they'll throw whoever they can. Like if you're there, right, and like an animator comes in, and like, wait, you got an actor today? Quick! I just need this one animation. That's what they always do on the stage. And what's the animation? You're gonna be Sonya, and you have to lay on your back and shoot a guy up into a helicopter. I was like, oh yeah, whatever.
That's awesome. And with that being said, a lot of the characters, even the ones that you mentioned, they're quite different in the way they act and their fighting styles and that sort of thing. Were there any challenges involved with particular characters or anything that kind of was a little improvised and ended up sticking in the final product?
Hey, there was a... I'm trying to think of improvisation. So a lot of the time, when you do like a low kick in Mortal Kombat, back in the old school days, like all the characters kind of had the same sweep when they did the low kick. It was always like the same kind of move. And that's usually what they would ask for. Like, okay, we got to do the low attack. And I would always try and just say, like, well, can we do something totally different for this character every time? Like, never doing the same move. And they said, well, how many sweeps are there? And I said, well, I've got a video called The Kictionary. I did a video back in 2014 where I did 200 kicks. It's not every kick in the world, but it's a good volume of kicks. And I think in that there were probably about like 30 sweeps. And so I would just kind of pull from that. Well, here's a sweep that's, with the front leg going forward. Here's one where you spin an extra spin with the kick and you go backward. Here's like a variation on the back sweep. And one of the ones that was like really kind of interesting was Erron Black's back sweep, where I would just literally, because he's a cowboy, he shouldn't be doing a martial arts back sweep, but it really needs to look cool. So I literally just kind of threw myself on the ground as I threw a spinning sweep and then tried to pop up as quickly as possible. And it went over pretty well.
I think so. Absolutely. Considering the department in which you were working in for NetherRealm's video game, I'm going to assume you perhaps worked with Carlos Piscina at some point. Is that accurate? How was it working with him, and just your general time working with NetherRealm Studios altogether?
Yeah, working with Carlos, he kind of became a mentor for me as I was working on building my own mocap studio. I was working on various games at the time, and he really kind of helped me understand not just how to move for games, because Carlos is a tried and true martial artist of like 30 years. Like he knows his stuff, and he knows traditional Chinese martial arts as good as anybody. But he's also an animator, so he understood how movement and animation sort of are supposed to work together. Because usually you're one or the other. It's very, very uncommon for a martial artist or a stuntman, and he did stunts. Anytime we would do partner attacks like a throw, he would be the victim. He would be the victim, and I'd be like, Carlos, let me get thrown right. He's like, no, bro, it's okay, I'll do it. He was always like that. So he it's kind of a rare combination to have both animation expertise and be able to move, because then it's like you're able to talk to both the animation team and to the performers and explain the why in a movement. Right? Like an animator might go, well, this kick should be like this. He'll say, well, no, it should be like this because, and then he'll give some kind of martial art reasoning for it. And then for a performer will say, well, I do a move like this, and he'll say, but it needs to be like this because, and then there's some kind of need that the animation team has that like as a performer you don't know. And if you just modify it slightly, if you modify your movement slightly, you get into a certain position quicker, then you save the animation team hours, right? Little things like that. And so having a guy like that, those are tough shoes to fill at a company, because it's tough to kind of be both of those things.
Certainly.
Yeah. So let's switch things up over to Mortal Kombat Legacy 2. So tell us about the auditioning process for the series. Did they have you in mind, off the hop, or was it somewhat of a lengthy process?
I was getting referred by a couple people on that. One was my mentor, Clayton Barber, another mentor, and another was Larnell Stovall, who was coordinating the series. And they were both pulling for me, so there wasn't really much of an audition process because I had already worked with both of them extensively. So it was kind of like, and a lot of the time with stunts, it's like, really is word of mouth a lot of the time, the way that you get onto projects like that. So, I mean, if you're in cahoots well with a stunt coordinator and he can vouch for your acting ability too, then a lot of the time the director is like, well, let's just avoid the whole audition process because they don't have time for that, man. And they have to go through a casting agency, and those people don't know what they're talking about most of the time. Like, you'll have a casting agency that says like, okay, so you're going to be Stryker. Okay, show us all of the moves you can do, and you'll do a backflip, and they'll say, great, this guy can do a backflip. And then the director says like, the guy doesn't do a backflip. Like, I didn't want a backflip guy. I would need a shooter guy. So again, if they can bypass all that, they do it, and that's what happened. But when we so my first training session on that, day one, I was at Jam Gym in LA, and we were choreographing the final fight against Brian T, who was playing Liu Kang. He was being he was being doubled by
Kim Do.
I'm so sorry, Kim Do. Thank you. Sorry, Kim. Yeah. Kim Do, a freak of a talent. And the fight was actually supposed to be Stryker and Kung Lao versus Liu Kang. And we choreographed for an entire, I think we choreographed for 2 days. Me and Mark Dacascos did a really cool 2-on-1 fight. And it started with just the 1-on-1 that is in the series now. But like 75% of the fight was the 2-on-1 afterward. And there's video of it somewhere floating around. I don't know where it went.
That would have been so good.
It's just a previs. We never actually shot it because on the day when it actually came time to shoot it, we ran out of time.
Oh, so it was mainly due to time constraints. In terms of how it was written in the script, do you know how the fight originally ended?
No, I think it ended probably similarly to what happened, and they just sort of resolved that gap on the day when we were shooting. And I remember everybody being really disappointed because it was Mark. Like Mark's part got cut. Who the hell am I? Nobody knows who I am. This is 2012. I'm nobody. I show up on set. They're like, "Who are you? You're some actor." I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm a stunt guy too." Like, what? We don't know, whatever. And then I did my fight, and like, "Oh, cool, you're a stunt guy." But then like Mark, who is the G of martial arts cinema in America, he didn't even get to throw a punch in this fight. It was really, and you know the way that Mark handles stuff like that. Mark is he's like, no, it's fine. Like it's all about the story. That's the stuff he says, you know. So he's that kind of guy, and it was heartbreaking. But you know, he's like Absolutely. He was probably the least hurt of all of us. Kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think Mark is great. Actually, my guilty pleasure, I really like the Double Dragon movie. I get a lot of hate for that, but
that's not a bad movie. People don't know that.
Thank you.
Not a bad movie. It's way better than like Mario Brothers, and you know, like as a video game.
God.
At least it's fun, right?
Yeah. Do you remember anything specific about the extended fight that really stood out? Any particular sequence, or not really?
No, I think Mark had a butterfly twist in there, and when we were rehearsing it. So Mark does this thing, and I don't know if this is like his shtick or if this is just how he is. I think at the time he was 50. I don't know. And nobody knows how old he is. He could be 100. He could be 20. and somebody says, so we're thinking Kung Lao does a butterfly twist here, and Mark goes like, okay, can you explain that real quick? Says, well, yeah, you go down, you go up, and you do a full spin. It's like you're gonna do a butterfly, but then you pull it tight, and then you spin, you kick out. And he goes, and he does it right there. He just does it, and we all go like, you can do that already. Like, come on, man, you can do anything. That was gonna be in the fight, you know. It would have been a crazy fight, but.
Wow. So before I jump onto my next question, I just want to 100% confirm there was nothing, or at least not too much filmed for that fight. Or there was some stuff.
None of that fight was shot.
None of it.
Not when I was there. No, I mean once my scene was done, the sun was going down. They had to get the final dialogue out of the way, so the hat went into the ground, and there was no action after that.
Okay, very good. Eric, correct me if I'm wrong. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you sent in, nevertheless, an audition tape for Legacy 2. How exactly did you end up pitching your portrayal of Kurtis Stryker? What did it entail, and what type of research did you do for the combatant?
Don't even remember an audition tape.
Okay.
But the thing that I knew, being a fan of the game, is that Stryker's like the only guy that's just a person in the game.
One of the few, yeah.
Like Sonya Blade's got her fireball thing for some reason.
Or ring toss, yeah.
Yeah, or whatever that. Yeah, she's got a ring toss.
Yeah.
And like a magical horseshoe throw, and then but like there's no other humans really. Like everybody's kind of this supernatural character, but then Stryker's just this weird cop that shows up and throws grenades and shoots a gun. Like, oh, that's kind of cool, man. I can play that. So I just kind of took that like, all right, well here I am, this nobody from the indie action world, getting the chance of a lifetime to go do this big show. I'm just gonna act like. Well, let me back up. I actually didn't quite know how to act. I actually didn't quite know how to do the character. And the first thing that we were shooting on the day was my dialogue with Johnny Cage, which is Casper Van Dien.
Yes.
And there was a moment where I was like, Casper. I just told him quietly, because, you know, I've been watching Casper for 20 years, ever since Starship Troopers, right?
Troopers.
Like, Casper, dude, I feel so out of place here. Like, I don't even know. I'm just like, I don't even know who I'm in the middle of some crazy production. I've never done this in my life. He's like, then act that. And it's like, oh, yeah. So I acted kind of like, what the hell am I doing here kind of thing, which made sense for Stryker also.
Worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks, Casper. He kind of saved my butt that day. I didn't know what I was doing.
Good advice. Good advice.
So you've stated before that director Kevin Tancharoen purposely changed Stryker's look so that he didn't kind of mimic his MK3 attire. And in some ways, he kind of looks a little bit like he did in Mortal Kombat Armageddon. So, did you have any input into the way he looked or anything like that?
I don't remember that. I think that they were trying to go for something that was more contemporary, right? Where, this is close to the time when John Wick is coming out. And there is that sort of trend toward, if you're a police officer in a movie, that like they're trying to go in a little bit more of a military direction.
Yeah.
But I think I had long hair at the time, and I think Kevin said, "You want to just leave your hair long for the character?" And I said, "I don't know if that works, man. I actually didn't want to cut my hair, but the character shouldn't have long hair. It doesn't make sense. Let's cut it." So they cut it, and then that's what you get. That was my contribution. Cut my hair.
How long did it take to film your fight scene total? I understand Kim Do filled in for some of it as Liu Kang. Did you choreograph the entire sequence yourself, or?
No, that was Larnell for the most part. But again,
Larnell.
like when you're choreographing these scenes, you have your fight coordinator, stunt coordinator, and then he will often allow the performers to sort of throw in their own ideas. But I think a lot of that was also Kim Do's ideas. Probably a lot of Mark's ideas are in there too. I mean, we were all there kind of choreographing it beforehand. And so I think in total, though, we might have shot that thing and on the day, I should mention too, Garrett Warren was stunt coordinating on the day. And I don't think he knew I was a stunt guy. I think he thought I was just some actor. And so there's this point where I get bashed. I'm not really answering your question. It took about 2 hours.
It's okay.
But there's this point where I get smashed in the face with the butt of the gun, and that was a cool gun because that was actually a foam gun, and they filled it with blood. There's this little hole in it, so every time it hit my head, blood came out. And I'm just kind of doing my normal reactions, and we cut. And Garrett's a hard ass. He was really hard on the stunt guy, like in a good way, right? He's trying to make everybody perform better. He's like hard on the stunt guy. He's like, "You gotta fall harder. You gotta fucking wrangle pads quicker." And he looked at me. He's like, "Good reactions." He walked away. I was like, I think if he had known I was a stunt guy, he would have been way harder on me.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, it was pretty convincing when I saw it with the blood and everything. So, yeah, it looked like it hurt.
2 hours probably for that whole fight. We had no time. I mean, I think maybe less, maybe an hour. Because, I mean, we just shot it in Masters. It was just me for the most part. It was me and Kim Do doing the sequence. We just do it as a whole oneer before the bashing. Probably did that 3 or 4 times, and the Steadicam guy just went around it. And you can kind of tell, like, there's a point where there's some egg, and that's what happens when you shoot coverage with a Steadicam. But when I say egg, I mean that like somebody's standing around not really doing anything. So I think I throw a strike, but it doesn't get blocked right away. Like you can see it. But that's how they shoot this stuff because there's no time. There's no time. That entire episode we shot that in like 2 days in the hills up there.
Wow.
And most of it was spent on dialogue. Obviously, that's usually what happens.
Yeah. Do you have any other interesting or funny stories when it comes to working with, say, Casper Van Dien or Brian T on set?
I'll tell you one. So there was a there was a part where Stryker gets hit with a fireball, right?
Yes.
And so what they did, they had this. I don't know what exactly it was. They put something in that jacket I was wearing to make it smoke, right? So it's smoking, and I'm laying on the ground. I'm supposed to be knocked out with my jacket smoking in the background. So I'm laying there, and they roll action, and I'm laying there. I'm just laying there knocked out, and I'm like, ow, fuck. And I hear Casper say, "He's on fire!" And everybody runs over and like puts out this fire on my back. So Casper, thank you also for that, for saving my life.
Holy shit.
I have a picture of it somewhere.
Oh.
That's insane. Wow.
Yeah, that was... It really felt like indie filmmaking for a moment, yeah. That got me into the scene. I was like, oh yeah, now I'm here.
Now I'm ready to go.
I'm awake.
Yeah. So that was cool. Also, I don't really remember much about the director except like there would be in that moment where I was having this self-doubt, right? Where I'm like, I can't act. I shouldn't be an actor. Why am I acting? This is the worst. I'm the worst guy for this role right now. Why was I, those moments? And I do my line and I'm doing it and I say the line. I feel very uncertain about it, and we do the whole take, and it's like a 2.5 minute long dialogue. And says cut, and I look over at Kevin, and I was just like, how was that? He's like, I think you just need to go that way a little bit and do it again. He just wanted me to move slightly. I don't even know if he was watching mine. I mean, he's like a very visual filmmaker. Maybe it was fine then. So, like, as an actor too, you get feedback like that sometimes, and you get very self-conscious. But you have to remember that, like, sometimes no good feedback is actually really good feedback. You shouldn't be expecting applause. If the director wants something out of you, they'll ask, and maybe that's actually a sign of a good director, where they say, like, no, that's it. Just do that again, but move that way a little bit this time. So otherwise, you steady on, right?
Yeah. So at one point in time, Kevin, I believe, was actually linked to his own Mortal Kombat movie. Were you ever in talks to appear in this potential film, or did you hear anything about it at all?
Oh, man. All right. So, the short answer is no, but I'll give you this anecdote.
Sure.
So, the year after doing Mortal Kombat Legacy, all right, so I find out that they're doing, I find out, so San Diego Comic-Con happens the year after, 2013, and we have a booth at Comic-Con, and I find out that he's going to be there with the team, with the production team, with Warner Brothers, Machinima and all that, right? And so I'm texting him going, like, hey, come by our booth, like, come check us out. He's like, oh yeah, cool. And then, and of course, like, he's busy, he can't do that. And then I find out that, like, he and all of the other cast are doing a signing of for the show. Not me.
What?
So I go, like, huh, and I wasn't that hurt about it. Again, I'm the nobody, right? And so I go over, and here's my third Casper story. I go over to the booth, this huge signing booth. It's like Mortal Kombat cast signing, and I was just like, huh. And then I look up, I see Casper, and he's got his aviator sunglasses on, like a members only jacket, and he looks down at me. He's like, Eric, hey, get up here. And then I look over at, like, some of the production team, and they look at me, and they go, like, they kind of do this facepalm moment. And I was just like, and then I see, like someone says, like, yeah, bring him up. So then I go up, and Casper is, like, hugging me. All the other cast is there. I'm hugging all the cast, and so, like, Casper goes down to the signing area, and he, like, gets up on the table and, like, kicks off one of the name tags that was on there. He puts me in that seat, and he writes my name on a tag, and I ended up doing the signing session. So thank you again, Casper. Three things that guy did. Yeah.
What a legend.
Good man.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Wow. That's a story. Yeah.
I crashed my own signing session, if you want to say that. That's as close as I ever got to doing a Mortal Kombat movie.
That's awesome.
I think maybe they looked at me after that. They're like, definitely don't bring this guy back. He's a problem. Don't bring him.
You're all about justice. You're a cop. I mean, come on. So you've also starred or, like, worked on some of the biggest video games in history, like God of War and Last of Us 2. What are some great memories attached to those particular IPs?
Well, I'll clarify too that, I'm not the star of God of War. I'm not even the only person who did Kratos' motion capture, right? There's an actor, Chris Judge, who does the acting. There were other performers who came in before me that did motion capture for Kratos, probably to just kind of, like, stand the system up, stand up the combat engine, and this is very standard. And then it was really, like, I came in late on that game, and then I don't know how much of the movement is mine. People swear that they see me when they see the character move. I don't really understand how that's possible because they tweak the animation so much. It could be that my animations are meshed in with other stunt performers' animations. But Sony did put together a promo that said that I did Kratos, but for the record, I wasn't the only one. A lot of people did it. A lot of people put it on their resume that they did the stunts for Kratos, and it's like, okay, that's. You look at the end credits. Sure enough, there are like 20 people in there. So. But I would say that with doing Kratos, so I came in as kind of like a Hong Kong style fight guy, where all my movements were very kind of snappy, and if someone says to throw a punch, I load up, I throw it, and I come back. That's how I would throw it. And so when they bring me in to do Kratos, who's this 6'4" Greek character, and who's got this big beard, and who's, I don't know how old he is. They say throw a punch, and I throw a punch like that, and they say, well, that's not it. That's not at all how you're supposed to throw a punch for this character. You need to throw it much bigger, much more character, and so that was really hard because I had to kind of like rebuild my movements so that everything was bigger, because in animation, particularly with 3D animation, the more movement you give them, the easier it is for them to sort of get the movement that they need out of the character. If you just give them this, they can't like make that bigger. It's really hard for them to make that bigger because it'll look very artificial. But if you give them something really big like that, they can take all those curves and then they can cut around it whenever they need, and they can make it snappier, but at least you give them all that kind of organic movement. And there was there were various animators that kind of guided me through that process of like learning how to move again, which was very difficult because again, you're talking about going from a very snappy kind of movement to a very big character-driven kind of movement, which I would call an American style. And one of the animators' name is Mehdi. Funniest dude. He's Moroccan guy, came here 15 years ago. I think God of War was his first game. Worked on it ever since, and he's trying to show me how to like add spring to the movement of the character. And Mehdi's like 6 feet tall or so. He's very unassuming. This guy, he's very unassuming, and he says, I think that if you can just like load up a little bit better and kind of like circle into it. And I said, like, well, what are you talking about, man? And he shows me. He goes like this, boom, and he does it. He actually did the move exactly the way that he wanted it.
Okay.
And he showed me physically how to do that. He's another one of those guys, and Bruno is another one of those guys on that game also who like is a martial artist and can animate. So again, like when you have that combination, that's like as good as it gets within the game world. So I call that the leaf spring, where it's like this big load, and then everything kind of comes out like a whip at the end. And that was really what defined the character in the end. There were other little accents too, like every time Kratos hits, we would do something called head rage, where, normally when you punch, you're sort of like looking at the target. But with head rage, when you punch, you turn your head at the same time. Causes a little bit of whiplash, but the movement that you get out of it is kind of crazy. And that's why so many shots, like when you slow down, when you see like a slow motion Kratos shot, he'll be hitting and his head will turn toward the camera. And that's because like we would add that head rage in, and that allows them to like tweak the head, because they always add it in anyway. They would always add it in the animation anyway. So then I just started performing it, and that saved them a bunch of time.
Sure. Did you by chance work with Michelle Lee in Last of Us 2?
No, I did one day on Last of Us 2.
One day.
It was probably one of the worst days of mocap in my life.
Really?
Yeah, because it was the animator wanted me to go 6 feet forward and swing a hammer, and like I just couldn't do it exactly the way that he needed. So we spent like 2 or 3 hours going 6 feet forward and swinging a hammer. This is me doing like I had done like a year of God of War, and that's literally next door to where we did mocap for Last of Us 2. And I get called in to do Last of Us 2. I was like, oh yeah, I'm a mocap expert by now. I know what I'm doing. And I ended up doing a hammer swing for 2.5 hours, and they never called me back.
Oh, damn!
Wow.
So you never know. Never know.
Because I know Michelle Lee does a lot of this stuff too. Did you ever happen to work with her on any other project besides Legacy 2?
She was also on Demon Souls, but I wasn't there on the same day as her.
Ah, okay. Very good. And one other thing I want to ask. Do you find you were more heavily involved in God of War Ragnarok as opposed to the first one?
Yep.
Yeah. Big
Our
time.
studio provided the motion capture for a huge chunk of gameplay in that game.
Ah.
Yeah.
So you've dabbled a lot in the movie industry, of course. Besides some extensive fight scenes, like one of my personal favorites, which is in Death Grip, you have a heavy hand in doing a lot of writing and directing in your line of work as well. What are some of your proudest achievements in this field?
Oh, I think I think that the stuff that what do I say? Like, I think that Rope-a-Dope 1 and 2 are probably the closest to what my style really is. Death Grip is a very dark movie, made in a dark time of my life, but everybody's got to make that movie every now and then, get it out.
I loved it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, people say that too. I appreciate that. But probably Rope-a-Dope, because now, after Death Grip, I did Rope-a-Dope after Death Grip, and
Yes.
it was that time when I realized, like, okay, I gotta stop doing like the serious stuff. I'm not interested. I was watching a lot of Beat Takeshi at the time,
Okay.
so I wanted to do like a Beat Takeshi movie, which is very difficult with a martial art movie. So there's some kind of Korean stuff in there too, but I think I think Rope-a-Dope 1 and 2 are probably like the closest to that I could put my finger on that are like my style.
Yeah, you were very influenced by Sammo Hung, correct?
Sammo probably in terms of filmmaking, yeah, because he has a montage style of filmmaking that he really sort of perfected through the 80s, where he doesn't really shoot that wide. It's kind of surprising when you go back and look at his stuff from the late 80s. His stuff is a lot of the time like medium wides, but then he'll do like 8 moves. So like you'll start a fight sequence will start and it'll be like 8 moves, and then it'll cut in to like a closer, medium, close maybe, and it's like 3 moves, and he'll do 1 move, 1 move, 1 move. These like small, tiny shots, which are beautifully composed and totally make sense. And actually, when you come away from a Sammo Hung movie, you think, wow, I love how wide all the shots were and how long the takes were, and it's like they're actually not. They're not that wide. They're not that long. They're very quick. And the edit, like I did just like a back of the napkin calculation. Like his editing speed sometimes is like the same as Bourne Identity fights.
Ah.
And even his framing is like just as close as Bourne Identity. But the difference is that Sammo composes each shot. Like if there's just one punch and it'll last for like 8 frames, 10 frames, he'll compose it, he'll light it, he'll say action, boom, okay, move on, and then that's the shot. It's in the can. But like Bourne Identity style, the way that they shoot that is very coverage style, where this version where this shot we're going to shoot coverage of the whole fight and we're just going to stay medium. Right now this one we're going to go a little bit wider out the window or something. Okay, the whole thing. All right, now we're going to go in close and just try and find moments. And then you get all that in the can, and then the editor tries to find moments and stitch it together. Sammo has basically edited the fight as he's shooting it. It's already edited in his head. So you can't take Sammo's shots and rearrange them. Doesn't make sense. Because there's a series, there's this progression to them, there's a cadence, there's a rhythm, there's like a logic to how he puts his shots together. So I think a lot of us subconsciously sort of downloaded that same kind of style of shooting from watching his movies. Yuen Woo-ping has a very similar style. Corey Yuen has a very similar style. Jackie Chan is like the one who's kind of odd of all of them. Like, he really plays a vaudeville style where he pulls really wide. He doesn't really punch in close for close-ups. Like, anytime you see a Jackie fight where there's a close-up shot of like an insert of a move, that's probably a Sammo Hung movie.
Yeah.
Jackie's style is almost like Japanese style. Like, he'll just let the frame sit there and he'll play it for the frame. And if the gag doesn't work in the frame, he'll change the gag. Instead, like, whereas, you know, the other way of doing it is like, if the gag doesn't work in the frame, then you just like reframe and get the gag, right? Like an insert on picking something up or whatever. But for Jackie, it all has to play in a wide. So like, Rope It Up 2 is kind of a combo of those two things.
Yeah.
So Toasty and I are both huge Die Hard fans. So we were kind of surprised to discover that you helped choreograph a scene, I believe, for A Good Day to Die Hard. I don't think it made the final cut, though. Is that correct?
You know, that fight, like, so after Death Grip, the knife fight in Death Grip, Chad Stahelski at 8711 called me up and he says, "Hey, Eric, I want you to come down to 87 and do a knife fight for this Die Hard movie. Can you come? Can you come Monday?" I say, yeah, I think so. He's like, "Okay, I'll send a flight," right? And then it was on. So I went there with the same guy that I fought, Alvin. And JJ Perry was coordinating it, and Jeremy Marinas was shooting it. And spent a week doing that fight at 87. And, you know, the whole time, we're kind of getting warned that, like, the first pass of this, it's not going to get past Chad. Like, he's not going to let the first pass go. The first pass, he's going to want all these revisions, so just be ready. Be ready to go back and reshoot, right? We shot a whole week, we're shooting this thing. And then Friday comes around, we've put, you know, our first version is done, edited, and Chad comes in, and we all kind of go like, okay, what's he gonna say? What are we gonna have to do? And he watches it. Okay, good, thanks. And he walks out, and that was it. So it was good. Great, and it was good. It was like the fight seemed like good. I was trying to just punch with my left hand because I know Bruce Willis is left-handed. And the knife stuff, we tried to make it properly dangerous, and do the cuts and all that. Very few kicks. I think I soccer kick him in the face. So anyway, I was really stoked about seeing that fight. So then I go and see Die Hard. Good Day to Die Hard in the theater. Suffer through the first 85 minutes of that horrible movie. And then it gets to the rooftop scene. I'm like, all right, here it is. This is the redeeming moment. And then the building blows up. And I was like, never mind.
Unbelievable.
Bit of a metaphor for the film itself.
Yeah, a helicopter comes in. She can look at the roof. I was like, well, never mind.
Oh, man. That's a bummer.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
You can't take it personally.
Yeah. So as you've sort of mentioned a few times, and judging, we can see by your hat there, you're a co-founder of a company called SuperAlloy Interactive. Could you tell fans the process of starting this journey with developing the studio and the success that has taken place since its creation?
Yeah, the inception of this was my brother-in-law and I. My brother-in-law, Zach Swartout. We were starting to... Let me back up. I got asked to go to a game show in Chile called Fantastic Fest. No, excuse me. Festa Game. And they asked me, can you come in? Because they'd seen the Kratos behind the scenes video. They said, can you come and perform as, do a live show as Kratos? And I was just like, I don't want to put a costume on and swing an axe around on stage. I really don't want to do that. How about, and at the time I was going to E3 because I was trying to connect with, not hook up. I was married at the time. I was trying to connect with game developers. I was trying to connect with game developers and get mocap jobs. That's why I was going to E3, which is you can't do. It's impossible. That's an entirely different subject, how to even network as a mocap performer. It's extremely hard. But while I was at E3, I started kind of looking at the technology that was around there, and one of the things that cropped up was this Xsens motion capture system, which was entirely inertial without the need for cameras, which it cost pennies on the dollar compared to the Lightstorm system that we were using for God of War Ragnarok, and it's something that I could have gotten myself, and it fits in a friggin' backpack. So anyway, the idea comes to my mind. I was like, well, why don't I take that and do a live 3D character as Kratos, and I'll just be behind the scenes, behind a curtain. Then nobody has to see my face, but then they'll see Kratos up on the screen, and I can be performing live as him. We tried to get it to work. It was almost happening. Various things kind of fell through. It didn't work out, but I ended up going there anyway and doing a different character at Festa Game. It was a Chilean game at the time, so we took that character model and I did a live show as a 3D character. And and when I went to Festa Game, it was in Chile. I was like, I want to bring someone with me who appreciates video games, and I asked my brother-in-law to go with me. I was like, you just go with me, and love to just get to know you better and all that. And we really bonded, and then kind of looked at each other at one point, and one of the guys there too, who was working with Xsens, who helped us set up the to set up the mocap system, Chris Adamson. The three of us kind of like conceptualized a company, and Chris was working at Xsens at the time, which has been renamed Movella. But we conceptualized came up with an idea of a company. Zach said, like, do you need help doing this company? Because we could probably sell motion capture. And I thought, let's do it. Let's get 2 of these suits and just do it. Why not? And we got some connections. And then one of the first steps when I did God of War Ragnarok was pitching this idea, like, what if we just do a lot of the gameplay capture at our studio? And then we just send you the data, and you can direct remotely over Zoom, and then your animators never have to come to our studio. And that's how we did the whole thing. And then COVID hit. So we already had a remote motion capture pipeline set up. COVID hits, and everyone goes, "Oh no, we gotta go remote." And we're like, "Yeah, good, we're fine. Let's just keep going."
Sweet.
Yeah.
Didn't even stop. So we did that for 3 years. So yeah, that was our first job. Okay. Well, we had a few other small ones at the time. It was our first big job, which is tough because as a small studio working on a video game, you're not allowed to say anything at all until that game is out. Not even after they announce it, you still can't talk about it until they tell you what you can say. It's like government secrecy. It's not like movies. Movies, you get cast to be in a movie, and you say, like, you tell all social media, "I'm in this movie. It's got the ending is this." Nobody cares. Nobody cares. But in games, if you even say that the game exists, you're fired.
Jeez. It's pretty intense, man.
It's intense, yeah. And I've gotten in hot water before for just mentioning a game before it was released, or like mentioning what I did in a game before it was released. We did a podcast one time, and talked about a game that I had done, and the game had been announced, and I had put my info on IMDb, but I mentioned that I worked on the game, and then somebody got wind of it. Legal called me up. They said, "You call the people that podcast who did that podcast. You have them remove that segment immediately."
Wow.
So I learned my lesson. Yeah. So think about that. Then you're starting a new company. You're trying to get the word out that you're doing cool stuff. You can't say anything for 3 years. You can't say for 3 years that you're doing the new God of War game.
Man.
It's a tough 3 years.
That's rough.
That's a challenging 3 years.
Yeah, so all worked out in the end, though.
Yeah.
Certainly. Okay, Eric, we're now going to switch things up a little bit. We're going to go to the last segment of our show, and it is called
Final Round.
So what we're going to do in this final round is we're going to ask you a couple quick questions, get to know you a little more. So the first question being, what are some of your secret talents?
I'm an anthropology nut.
Oh.
I read 100 pages a day. And, what else? Secret talents. Jeez, man. I make really good French toast.
Hey!
Nice.
Look at that.
There we go.
That's good stuff, man. You can never go wrong. What are some of your favorite types of music?
Oh, jeez, this is so embarrassing. Smooth
Too
jazz.
many or too little?
Smooth jazz.
Huh?
Nothing wrong with that.
And Japanese smooth jazz, by the way. Like some of the greatest jazz, and just Japanese jazz in general, too. And,
That's pretty cool.
And I like 90s grunge, especially because I found out when I was 13, I was listening to, what was I listening to? Gin Blossoms or something. And I'm listening to it in my room, and I hear a knock on my door, and I turn it down, and my dad opens the door. He's like, "Is that Gin Blossoms?" I say, "You know them?" He's like, "I listen to this every day," and I go into his van. He's got he's got all the same tapes that I have.
Whoa.
So it's got kind of a special place in my heart. My dad and I, without knowing it, were listening to the same music for like 5 years.
Wow.
I also, you know, being a good Catholic grade school kid, I listened to a lot of gangster rap growing up. So,
Tupac?
Tupac was a little bit before Tupac. Like
Dr. Dre.
Dr. Dre, yeah. You know, that whole period. I don't know what it was, man. There's something about like, there's something very like capitalistic about it at the time, where, you know, in a small town, and like you're kind of hustling just in a small town as it is. So it's just, there's something about it that clicked with a lot of us. And we had kind of an underground like trading ring of cassette tapes at my Catholic school. And so like some of us, because it's really hard to get, you know, like the parental advisor explicit lyrics logo would make it really hard to get a tape. And so we would kind of like hide these things. Once we could get them, we would sort of like trade them around at our Catholic school. And then we got caught at one point because I bought the Onyx tape, and that just ruined the whole thing.
Do you have any guilty pleasures besides the music?
Guilty pleasures besides music?
Besides the music, yeah.
That's a tough one. Guilty pleasures.
Is there any like movie that you feel bad for liking? Kind of like me with Double Dragon.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I do have kind of a soft spot for the like late '80s, early '90s Lifetime movies. I don't know what it is. They're so good. They're extremely well done. Maybe they're still really well done for all I know. You know, it's just not my demographic. But you know, every now and then I catch one, and I just end up watching the entire thing. Like this is just, like, this. There's nothing in this for me except it's a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of
one of the funniest or most embarrassing moments in your life.
Yeah, I have one. I don't know. Maybe it was back when I was in fifth grade, and I went to a school award ceremony, and and everybody's getting their award. I can't even remember what it was. It doesn't matter. But at the end of the awards ceremony, a mom came up to me, and she puts the Onyx cassette tape in my face, and she says, "Is this yours?" Because I had given it to her son, and Onyx was the cream of the cream, well, bottom of the barrel maybe, in terms of just extreme language. And like every not just like, if you looked at the list of the songs in the back, every song had a cuss word.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I tried to deny it, but I knew I was caught. And and that's when my parents found out that I had a stash of gangster rap albums under my bed, and the whole gig was
Look out.
That yeah.
Look out.
That's probably not the most embarrassing thing in my life, but I actually can't really
But just
think of
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. That works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eric, what's your favorite food?
Or just favorite cuisine in general.
I like lox and cream cheese on a bagel.
Nice.
Yes, I'm all about extra cream cheese, man, for sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
But no capers, none. Not one caper needs to be on. No way.
No.
Zero. No.
Out of the question.
Yeah.
Do you have any pet peeves?
Yeah. Got one. anytime somebody makes a polemic statement about someone's religious, political views or whatnot, and they are not actually able to steelman that other person's side. I think that debates should reinforce this thing that we used to do in grade school, which is, okay, now that you know each other's sides, write a very convincing argument of the other side. Whoever writes the most convincing argument, steelmanning the other side, is the one that wins the debate. I think if you could do that, then you would improve communication in this world, in this country, like, in no time. But I think instead we're just kind of more obsessed with pitting people against each other, unfortunately. So, but I think if we could teach people to to steelman the opposites, the opposition's side, it would just make like a much more civil discourse, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, Eric. And final question: what would you say is your proudest achievement?
Yeah, I don't really use the word pride too much, because I'm always fine with something, because like so if I say like I'm pleased with something, if I could use that term, I think the thing that I'm most pleased with that I've done in terms of my career is probably making, at least in the filmmaking sense, making Contour, my first feature film. I think that's probably the thing that really helped kind of make the team. It helped sort of make me who I am. And it was just that like weird moment where you go, I'm just going to do this thing. It's insane. Nobody's really done it before. People have done these super low budget feature films, but like, I don't think I've made it like that low budget. Like we had $4,000 to do that film.
Oh.
And I think we still had some left over at the end. I mean, it was cheap, man. We shot that thing for a year. But it was just this like very, very, like everybody bought into it. And the reason that it went over, and I think one of the reasons that we were able to get people to buy into it every day, the performers, to keep on coming back for no money. Nobody got paid anything. And it's usually not even gas money. What kept people coming back was every night after we'd shoot, I'd go and I'd edit what we shot, and I'd bring it back the next day, and I'd show everybody with sound effects and temp music and everything what we had done. And that just got everybody just on board every day. They were so excited to see how that thing would look the next day. And with editing, it's totally possible to do that. And that's kind of standard practice now. I mean, in fact, there's usually an editor on site editing as they go nowadays. But back then, almost 20 years ago, it was also possible.
Yeah.
So that process really kind of helped build the team.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much for joining us today, Eric. Before we go, is there any current project that you'd like to promote at this time, and where can fans find you on social media?
Right now, I'm working on some action essays. I'm working on one involving, it's called Movement Language, and it's in the writing stage right now. I've done a couple action essays. They're on my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Eric Jacobus official. And I have a Telegram, t.me/Eric Jacobus, and that's all my social media at this point. So check out the action essays. That's like, I think that's my big thing right now that I'm doing.
Sweet.
Very nice.
Sounds good. Okay, man. Well, you have yourself a nice day, and we're definitely looking forward to releasing this thing.
Thank you all.
There we have it. That's a wrap for today. Hope you're all doing well, and we're excited to dish out more material shortly. If you've made it this far into the podcast, then it would stand to reason that you've enjoyed today's feature. If you're not already subscribed, be sure to do so. This way you don't miss out on any future content. Every single bit of support we get in this channel comes a long way. We appreciate you dearly. Okay, combatants, you know how it goes. Have fun, stay safe, and
Stay flawless.